told him she did.
I think a reasonable response would have been shining his light in her mouth and telling her, spit it out, spit it out, spit it out, spit it out. And if she continues to chew, she continues to chew. It's a bag of dope.
They get killed if she swallowed it. Okay.
But that's where our disagreement here is.
So you're saying it's okay to let her die?
I didn't say let her die. I said the proper way to do it is call for medical personnel. She's already chewed it. It's already in her system. What equipment do we have that's going to save her life? But if she's in the process of chewing it, think of this logically. And you're shoving a flashlight down somebody's throat. Now, as opposed to chewing it, you just shove the bag in her throat. Now maybe she's going to choke to death.
Don't worry, we're going to get to the flashlight.
Because of your actions.
Don't worry, we're going to get to the flashlight.
I'm sure we will.
Now, are you at all familiar with the fellow officer rule?
Yes.
Okay. And can you briefly describe the what the arbitrator with the fellow officer rule is?
Basically, if a fellow officer calls for help, or I guess the best example would be, I just saw a car run a red light. It's probably the best. Hey, I need this car pulled over. I can't get there. I'm stuck in traffic. The car is a, I don't know, gray 4-door Chevy, Florida tag ABC 123. It ran a red light, and you go over and you pull the car over, and then the officer comes and writes a ticket. It'd probably be the best way to do that.
And another example might be, I just saw a guy, an officer goes out on the radio and says, I just saw a guy with a red sweater rob a 7-Eleven. And I'm trying to run him down now, but I'm calling other units to assist.
Good, that's a good example.
And other units, based upon that officer's observation, can take the probable cause that he had and use that as their own to effect the arrest.
You are correct.
Correct. Now, isn't it true then that in this situation, when Officer Random tells Officer Booth, hey, she's trying to swallow a bag of dope, which is a third-degree felony, whether or not the state chooses to prosecute her or not, it's a third-degree felony. Based on Officer Random's words to Officer Booth, didn't Officer Booth at that point have his own probable cause imputed through Mr. Random?
To reasonably retrieve the evidence, yes, reasonably.
Okay. And since he had this imputed probable cause from Officer Random, he really didn't need to verify that Miss Chippewa was chewing a bag of dope, did he? Before he took law enforcement action.
It takes a second or two to...
He didn't need it, did he?
He didn't need it? I don't know. I would disagree with that. I think it takes a second or two.
That's the whole purpose of the fellow officer rule, isn't it?
Depending on who your fellow officer is, yes.
All right. Now,
let me say this. If I had my fellow officer who had been fired for untruthfulness was giving me information, I think I would think a little bit twice before I said that.
back up. What did you just say?
If my fellow officer, if me and you were out on a job together, and I had been fired for untruthfulness, and I'm going to give you information, I think it would make me be a little bit leery before I would act really quickly.
And we were speaking about Officer
Random.
Okay. Now, I'm glad you brought up the point. Now, Officer Random, at the point of this, was how many years in? How many years with Daytona?
I will defer to you.
I don't know. But he
more
was
than 4, I would assume.
Okay, and he was a senior officer as compared to Mr. Booth.
That is correct.
Okay. And isn't it true that Officer Random was one of Mr. Booth's training officers?
I don't know that.
Okay. All right. And Officer Random was primary on this call, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Involving Ms. Chippewa. Okay. And so it's your testimony that when Officer Random tells Mr. Booth that she's in the act of trying to swallow a bag of dope, that somehow Mr. Booth should have thought back to Mr. Random's disciplinary history and your suggestion he was fired for lying previously and used that as in deciding whether or not to take law enforcement action?
Yes, and I'll tell you why.
I'll be thrilled to hear it.
Okay. I'm going to enlighten you a little bit. I've been a cop for 28 years, and we're going to group cops in professional groups. You have cops that when they answer a radio call, you don't want to be anywhere near them because they have horrible safety habits. They tend to use excessive force. They may be suspected of fabricating evidence. So you know through the course of working, there are certain cops that you're going to gravitate to. You're going to gravitate toward the career officer who knows what they're doing and squared away. There are different things, but birds of a feather tend to flock together. You know that.
Association.
You know that.
Guilt
No,
by
I'm not saying
association.
guilt by association, but you know who you want to associate with. And you made your, your career goals may be, I don't know, you may want to be a prosecutor. So you're going to gravitate toward, or a judge. You are going to gravitate toward people that are going to facilitate you getting toward being a judge. It's a human prejudice. I mean, we all have that. You have officers that gravitate toward officers that may tend to push the edge of the envelope a little bit, that may tend to always be in trouble, that may tend to use excessive force, because that's the way you gravitate to. You become a police officer, you're a type A personality. That type A personality should stand up against things that they see aren't right. They shouldn't be like a lamb led to slaughter. Oh, he's my training officer, to follow him. The training officer said, drive the car off the bridge. We're going to drive off the bridge. There comes a point in time where you use your intelligence that Mr. Booth has, and you have to separate yourself from those individuals. During my career, I worked with guys that everybody got locked up. It was called a Temple Turban, because they went to Temple Hospital, because everybody had resisted arrest. Well, after the second time, you're like, whoa, man, I ain't working with this guy anymore. I'm staying away from this guy. We don't see that with Mr. Booth and Mr. Rana. We see them together at the Kirikin, I don't know if it's Kirikin or whatever, the Mr. Palmer incident. They're together. Here they are together in this incident. And then here we are again, the conspiracy that I'm going to use is the camera goes off. We know that Rana intentionally turned it off, and Mr. Booth puts in his paperwork that he turned it on. I saw him turn it on. That's what his police report reads.
Okay. Did everybody in the department, yourself or any of your command staff, anybody that you know of, ever warn Mr. Booth to steer clear of Officer Random?
I don't know that.
Okay. Was there any memo put out that listed the reasons that Officer Random shouldn't be trusted, shouldn't be used as a mentor or a guide?
I do not know that.
Was there any, did you or any member of your command staff or any of the lower level supervisors assign any particular mentor to Mr. Booth? Or put them together with any particular mentor that would serve a better example as a police officer than Officer Random?
I do not know that.
Now, when it was known that Officer Booth and Officer Random had some sort of friendship, whatever it was, if it would, I'm not sure how extensive it was. Did you or any other member of the command staff, or including low-level supervisors, say, "Hey, stay away from Random. He's bad news"?
I do not know that.
Now, you're obviously you say Officer Random was terminated by the police department previously for untruthfulness.
Yes, sir.
And that was approximately when? No, yes.
Thank you. 2010.
2010. Okay. And he was, and that matter was agreed through arbitration?
I didn't make it that far. There was a deal struck, and I think he agreed to 2 years, 1 year,
1 year suspension.
1 year suspension without pay.
Okay.
That sounds right.
All right. Now, even after Officer Random came back on duty, you kind of looked at him with a kind of an a leery way.
Yes.
And you continue to hold sort of a negative opinion of him throughout the remainder of his career with the Dana Beach Police Department.
I wouldn't say a negative opinion, but you would, when he was alone, you would question his actions.
When he what now?
He was alone.
When he was alone, you questioned.
If he was alone and something happened, you would question the veracity of his statement.
Okay. But no warnings are ever given to the officers that, look, if this guy tells you something, you might want to double check it before you take any action based on it.
No official warning from me, no, sir.
No, any informal warning.
That I can't tell you.
Now, after Officer Random came back in 2010, well, I don't know exactly 2010, but after he came back for his unpaid suspension, was he a trainee officer after that point?
I got to be honest with you, I don't know. I don't know what capacity he was put into.
Well, Matt Booth started here in what year, Matt?
2009.
Okay. So it stands to reason that if, I'm just going to represent to you, that Officer Random was one of Mr. Booth's training officers. It stands to reason that after Mr. Random came back from his year off, that he was training officer.
I object. That seems facts on evidence. That's contrary to the evidence.
I don't think it's contrary at all, but the witness can
He
answer.
trained him in 2009. Got fired in 2010.
Well,
He was in field training.
let me ask you, Chief. Can you say one way or another whether Officer Random was Mr. Booth's training officer?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if he was an FTO, I'm sorry, field training officer or not. I don't know.
Okay. Now, and you don't know whether or not he held that capacity after he came back from the year suspension.
Correct.
Okay. Now, you know the name Johnny Bostic?
I do not.
Are you aware of any in-custody deaths that have occurred?
I am aware of an urban rumor, I don't know if it's rumor or not, of somebody dying in custody in 2005, I think. It's up in here. I have been the chief since 2006. I have and to the best of my knowledge, every lawsuit comes across my desk. I have never saw that name on a lawsuit come across my desk.
Johnny Bostic.
Never saw it.
So this rumor, whatever it is that there was in-custody death involving a person, a suspect that has swallowed a bag of, a detainee that has swallowed a bag of dope.
Correct.
Okay. And do you know any of the more details of this rumor other than that?
I heard it before this case was going to go to arbitration. I asked my command staff, does anybody know anything about it? Nobody knew anything about it. I checked our lawsuits. I never saw a lawsuit. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm saying if it happened, we didn't get sued for it, and it's nobody in the forefront of the department knows anything about it.
You mentioned before that one of the options available to these officers was to allow Ms. Chippewa to go ahead and chew the bag and swallow it, and then just call rescue, right? Yes?
Yes.
Now, isn't it true, sir, that if the bag had become lodged in her throat, that it could have choked her and rescued her and then too late to save her?
Correct.
And could it also have been, sir, the drugs hit her system, given her very diminutive size? She weighs 90 pounds, I'm surprised. Given her very diminutive size, that if the drugs hit her system, it could have caused cardiac arrest and killed her long before rescue arrived.
Correct.
So, don't you see any value in going hands-on Ms. Chippewa, attempting to remove the narcotics from her mouth?
If Miss Chippewa was choking and they applied the Heimlich maneuver to her and broke her ribs, hey, that's what we tried to do to save her life. But we can't deal with somebody who, we have no, if it was a bag of heroin and she went into whatever, we don't carry Narcan to administer it. So if she's chewing that bag and it gets in her system, that was an action that she took. Our defense to that action is we called immediately for medical transport to transport her. But I'm going to go to it again. If you're chewing a baggie, if one of our children was chewing anything, would we insert a flashlight in their mouth to get it out and save their life? No.
Will we insert our fingers in their mouth to get it out?
Not a choking victim, I would hope you wouldn't.
Okay.
Because you're going to push it further.
Hold on. You just said that if our children were chewing on something they shouldn't be chewing on, I asked you the question, wouldn't you put your fingers in there to get it out?
No. You're going to lodge it in further.
So your child's chewing.
You turn the child over and you hit the child in the back for back thrust to try to get the piece to come out. Or if it's an older child, you would do a Heimlich maneuver. Why would you risk putting it in and shoving that item even further down without trying other methods
I'm not
to get
talking
it out?
about flashlights, sir. I'm talking about your fingers.
That's what I'm talking about.
So it's your
Why would you
testimony.
not try? It's my testimony that you would try other methods before you automatically went into that mouth and pushed that item further and then got it lodged. You would do a Heimlich maneuver, or you would do back thrust on
But again, there was no training provided these officers to tell them what they should do.
It's common sense. As a parent, would you be jamming your finger in your child's mouth to get something out if
Oh, sir,
the intent of pushing it down?
let me tell you what I would do, since you asked the question. And it's happened before. I have a 3-year-old. If you chew on something you shouldn't, I force his little mouth open, and I put my fingers in a pincer move to try to remove the offending item. I don't wait for him to swallow it so I can do the Heimlich maneuver. I don't hit him on the back, because that could only result in him swallowing it. I do what any other rational parent would do.
I would argumentatively disagree with you that...
Well, you asked me the question. I'm just
I know,
answering.
I would disagree, because I would disagree with you. Because if you check what happens when you're doing a child who's choking, the first thing you would do
I didn't
is
say he was
turn him
choking.
over and push it over.
I didn't say he was choking. I said he was chewing on something he ought
We're
not be chewing
going
on.
to split hair.
Just like Ms. Chippewa.
We're going to split hair on words. Is what we're going to split hair on.
Okay.
Split hairs on.
Let me have this marked as, I think we're on U5, if I'm not mistaken.
Is this a good time to take a restroom break? Does that work for you?